On my wedding day, the boss's son sent me a text, "You're fired." He called it my gift. But 3 hours later, I had 200 missed calls because I took everything he thought he owned. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. The white dress, the garden ceremony, the fairy lights strung through trees, every detail was perfect. I stood at the altar with my heart full, hand in hand with Adam, my best friend, my rock, my soon-to-be husband. But life has a cruel sense of timing. Right after the vows, as guests cheered and music swelled, my phone buzzed in my clutch. Out of instinct, I checked it, and there it was. A single message. "You're fired. Consider it my wedding gift. KIAN." KIAN, the boss's spoiled, arrogant son. My manager at Moreland Interiors. The same man who had mocked me for months, never missing a chance to remind me I was just a project coordinator. But this? On my wedding day? I stared at the message, stunned. My breath caught. I could barely hear the music now. My hands trembled as I showed it to Adam. He read it silently, and then something strange happened. He smiled. Not a confused smile. Not a pitying one. A knowing, calm smile, like he'd just been waiting. "Don't worry," he whispered. "This is just the start." I didn't know what he meant then. But I trusted him. What no one knew, what KIAN didn't know, was that this wedding wasn't just a union of love. It was the joining of two empires. Adam wasn't just a kind-hearted entrepreneur. He was the founder of a global architecture firm. The kind that had been negotiating a silent acquisition with Moreland Interiors for the past 6 months. And me? I wasn't just a project coordinator. I was the final piece of the merger, the inside lead. The bridge. And now, the future owner of everything KIAN thought he ruled. But I didn't say a word. I pocketed the phone, smiled through photos, kissed my husband, danced under the stars, and toasted with champagne. All while KIAN thought he had broken me. 3 hours later, as we were boarding our private jet for our honeymoon, my phone buzzed again. Then again. And again. When I finally looked, 203 missed calls. 58 messages. All from Moreland. All from KIAN. That was the moment he realized that the woman he humiliated now owned him. I didn't answer a single one of those calls. Not on the plane. Not in Paris. Not even when KIAN left a voicemail crying. He'd figured it out, or at least part of it. The full truth hit him 2 days later, when Adam and I walked hand in hand into the Moreland Interiors boardroom. Everyone stood, including KIAN. His face went white. What is this?" he stammered. "This," Adam said calmly, "is your new executive director. You might recognize her. She used to work under you." "Not anymore." I smiled. Not smug. Just calm. The silence in that room? Thicker than any slap. KIAN blinked rapidly. "Wait, you can't do this. You were just a coordinator." I cut in. "And now I'm not. Your father signed the transition papers last week." "But Dad." "Oh," I said, walking slowly around the table, "your dad didn't want to sell." Until someone showed him screenshots of you embezzling client bonuses and sending threatening emails to interns. His mouth fell open. Adam slid a folder across the table. "Turns out mistreating your employees has consequences." The other board members leaned in, eyes wide, hands covering shocked gasps. One of them whispered, "This is brutal." I didn't even look at KIAN. I turned to the head of HR. "I'd like to review all employee complaints filed in the last 12 months. Especially those involving KIAN." She nodded quickly. "Already waiting on your desk." "Good." And then I turned to him. "You once told me I didn't belong here. That I was lucky to even have a seat at the table." He swallowed hard. I leaned forward. "Well," I said, "now I own the table." And just like that, I dismissed him. Not with screaming. Not with threats. Just with power. Quiet. Steady. Unshakable. KIAN didn't take it well. The next morning, headlines were already circulating. CEO's son ousted by ex-employee turned executive director. Internal scandal leaked. He went on damage control immediately, emailed the board, tried to twist the story, painted himself as a victim. Then he tried the sympathy route. He came to my office. Yes, the same glass-walled office I used to deliver coffee to. Look, he said, voice low. Maybe I was too harsh. But this? You're really going to destroy me like this? I didn't even stop typing. You destroyed yourself, Kian. You're bitter. Just admit it. Now I did look at him. Slowly. You think this is about bitterness? He blinked. Isn't it? I stood. Walked to the window behind me. Looked out at the skyline. You fired me on my wedding day. In a text. And called it a gift. Then I turned around. But here's the real gift. I turned your little tantrum into an empire. Without you ever noticing. His jaw clenched. I motioned toward the exit. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a call with Paris HQ. You know, the ones who replaced you. He stormed out. And that's when I got the notification. Unauthorized file access attempt detected. Molan internal server, flagged account, KIAN V. I smiled. I'd baited him. Weeks earlier, I had the IT team create a honeypot folder, fake data, fake financials, and one little file labeled Moreland Secrets. He took the bait like a child stealing cookies. 10 minutes later, I walked into security. Send the footage to legal. Kian had broken into the system. And under the revised contract I'd written, that was a prosecutable offense. He was arrested the same afternoon. In front of everyone. At the office cafe. Holding a cappuccino. He spilled it on himself. Poetic. The board watched in silence as security escorted him out. And I just stood there, same spot he humiliated me from a year ago, and watched him vanish. Nobody clapped. But they didn't need to. I'd already won. 6 months later, the company was thriving. New contracts. International partnerships. And an internal culture that no longer whispered, it roared. People spoke freely now. Laughed without fear. No one walked on eggshells around corner offices. And me? I didn't just run operations anymore. I restructured the entire leadership team. I promoted Sarah, the receptionist who once hid in the stairwell after Kian yelled at her for not smiling enough, to executive assistant to the board. She cried when I handed her the badge. Then came the intern, Zoya. She was brilliant. Quick. Strategic. Kian had once told her she was just not a Moreland fit. Now, she was leading the Milan launch team. That office Kian humiliated me in front of, the one I wasn't even allowed to clean properly on my last shift. I had it repainted, rebuilt, and gave it to Zoya. I don't need the corner, I told her. Been there, done that. She didn't speak at first, just nodded. Eyes shining, because she understood. I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted legacy. But I did keep one thing. His old plaque. Senior Director, Kian Baratsai. I had it framed in black and gold, and mounted in the break room, with a quote beneath it. If you disrespect the ones beneath you, be ready to serve them one day. People took pictures with it. Posted it with hashtags like #OfficeJustice and #FromWaitress to Boss. And then, the full circle moment came. A wedding inquiry. Big event. Lavish. Bride's father? Old money. They wanted a grand venue. Classic, luxurious, exclusive. The request landed on my desk. Guess who the bride was? Kian's cousin. He didn't dare reach out himself. But she did, oblivious. I confirmed the date. Reserved the ballroom. Sent the quote. And when the wedding day arrived, I stood at the top of the marble staircase as they walked in, Kian included. He looked at me. Eyes widened. Then dropped. He knew. He didn't speak. Didn't dare. But I greeted the bride, shook her hand, and smiled. Welcome to Moreland Hall, I said. Let me know if you need anything. And walked away. Because real revenge is never loud. It's the silence where they realize they lost everything.